with all those preliminaries, let us now turn to the Illinois State Library. I'm very pleased that Anne and Amanda Trimmer can be here to talk to us about the state budget.
Hi, everybody. The state budget. As you know, the General Assembly and the governor have, since the beginning of the fiscal year, which is July 1, there has been what's now called in the press in the field the budget impasse. And that means that we have not had a budget for substantial pieces of the operation, including things like our grant programs, since July 1. We have had, in that picture, there have been court orders to pay certain things, but of course, library grants, which is what I'm going to be talking about a little bit here, that has not, of course, been part of any court order. On Monday, however, Public Act 99491 was signed by the governor, and that did provide some funding in our grant programs. Now, I would like to tell you that it's 50% or 20% or 80%, but I can't. And the reason I can't is because each grant program, like literacy or the blind and physically handicapped or the public library per capita, system area per capita equalization, each of those is fed by a mixture of funding sources. And they're not all fed at the same proportion. So some of our grant programs are funded by one source at 100%. Some are funded at 50% by another source. So you can't say that we got X percent of the funding requested in our grant lines uniformly. That's just not the case. For example, the literacy program is fed by a mixture of the general revenue funds, the Live and Learn funds, and special SOS special services funds. In the Public Act that was signed on Monday by the governor, our grant lines included 0 general revenue funds. Not all, we're very grateful for what is in there. What's in there is the other funding sources like Live and Learn, like SOS Special Services, like the Accessible Electronic Fund. We have all these feeder sources that support our grant programs. So literacy, well, none of our grant programs, but I'm going to pick on literacy as the example. Literacy did not receive general revenue funds. It did receive Live and Learn funds and SOS Special Services funds. The bottom line, it got about 36% of the funding that is typically, or that was part of the Secretary's request for these grant lines. I know that's confusing, and I'm not going to go on, but what you need to glom onto is we got some, but not all, of the grant funding that was requested from the Secretary's office in the Public Act that was signed on Monday. What's not in there, and I know this is a big question for a few Rails libraries, what's not in there is the Public Library Construction Act grant program. That's the big bond program we had a couple of years ago. We do have a few programs that are owed some money still because the projects were big and multi-year. So that money was not included in any of the legislative actions so far. Doesn't mean it won't be, and it doesn't mean that GRF won't be included in this fiscal year either. We don't know whether, when, or if GRF funding will be folded into our grant lines. That's kind of as simple, I know it's not, but that's kind of as simple as I can make it. I'm going to turn it to Amanda so she can draw some context around what I hope were cogent comments from me.
Yes. As Anne explained, we were fortunate to get some money. Outside of the grant world, we did get operational money for the secretary in all of our special funds, which again only funds a portion of our operations. We did get $10 million in general revenue fund, but that is strictly for operational purposes only. We cannot use that for grants. That's basically going to pay for our leases and utilities and at least try to keep the lights on in our motor vehicle facilities. So but we're limited on what we can use that. We can't reimburse employee travel or pay for printing or anything like that. So we're very limited on what we can use that for. As Anne explained, in the library world, it's going to be very difficult, and I think our office is going to be meeting with the executive office, the secretary, chief of staff, along with Anne and Greg and Lauren to determine how we go forward from here, because we are trying to make grant award determinations on not a full picture, and that makes things very difficult. Right now we don't have a lot of concrete answers because we're still looking at everything. You know, and I want to also explain that, you know, yes, we got Live and Learn funding, and we'll be able to actually send those bills to the comptroller. But guess what? Those are going to sit at the comptroller. Those checks are not going to be cut anytime soon, because the Live and Learn fund receives all its funding from general revenue fund monthly transfers. We haven't gotten any transfers since May of this year. So that fund is currently 7 months behind in its monthly transfers. I'm hoping now that we have some spending available from the fund, I can get a couple transfers from the comptroller, but I really don't know, because there's currently a $4 billion backlog of bills sitting over in the comptroller's office. So while this is somewhat good news, I just want to, you know, put a little caution out there that, you know, a lot of these checks aren't going to be forthcoming. And, you know, I'm sure Greg will do his best to communicate with you guys on where we're at. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. We don't know what our full grants budget looks like, and then the money that we did get may be still held up in the comptroller's office. So I'm open to questions, or if Anne, is there anything else you want to answer?
I just wanted to comment that you will see the school district, the school per capita grants coming out of our office, because that's a statutory formula-based grant program that receives the lion's share of its funding from Live and Learn. So it actually was included in the law that was signed on Monday. So you will see the school district grants coming out. They're not at there was some GRF money in there that's not included, but the majority of it was Live and Learn. So we're going to go ahead and march those grants out. So you'll see those coming out. You'll also see applications for the Live and Learn construction program coming out. That project, as it's called, Live and Learn Construction, got its funding from the bill that was signed. And you know, you'll see those applications being advertised in e-news. So I just wanted to, if you see that and you say, wait a minute, what's going on? That's what's happening there. These grant programs are individually called out in the legislation. So that's what that money needs to be used for. What questions can we answer?
So somebody must have a question somewhere.
We have stunned you with our great explanation of this.
I think we all understand that it's complicated, and I thought it was very understandable. Does somebody want to ask a question?
I have a question.
Yep.
Oh, me? Okay. Hi, this is Laura Long in Coal Valley. I know in the past, if I'm recalling correctly, public library per capita was partially funded through LSTA grants. Is that a possibility again this year?
There are a lot of discussions and decisions that we need to make in the office. We need, as Amanda pointed out, we have to have many, many conversations, and lots of decisions are still forthcoming. The bottom line, to answer you simply, is that there is not enough federal money to make up for the gaping hole that the lack of GRF has left us with. So how we use the LSTA money that's remaining, we just need to talk about and make some decisions going forward. There are a number of programs that could use LSTA. There's just not enough to go around, though.
So Anne, is there anything you can say about the effect on the federal match? You know, how, I mean, when does that become an issue, or is it an issue already?
What a great question, Dee. We have to match 34 cents on every dollar of grant money that we receive. And the funding that we received on Monday, when the governor signed this bill, the state funding, the state funding achieves that match. Thank goodness. So we are good on match. However, we will not be good on maintenance of effort. There are two pieces to that whole federal LSTA money. One is match. We're good. The other is maintenance of effort. Maintenance of effort, we will have to, once again, file a waiver so that we are not held to our maintenance of effort level that's actually an average from the previous 3 federal fiscal years. So we'll have to do that again because all of our sister state agencies have had the same kinds of reductions. I would think it would be because that's one of the criteria that's used to determine whether the waiver is granted. Is it just the library that got its funds cut, or is it all of its sister state agencies? And of course, it will be all of us. So I think we'll have don't know, but I would guess we would have a pretty good shot at having our waiver granted.
And there's still the prospect, obviously, that there could be general revenue funds coming, correct?
Correct. We didn't receive we received $10 million out of a $260 million budget. So, I mean, they're going to have to pass something else additional, for sure for operations, because we are spending. Grants is kind of a little different. I would hope something would still be in there, but they may decide, if we don't get a budget till April, they may decide, we're 3/4 of the way through the year, we're just not going to, do any GRF grants this year. I don't know what to expect with that. So I think it's all going to depend on all the decisions that are made across the street and what sort of budget package they put together, if there's any sort of revenue increases. Even if there is a revenue increase, the problem becomes, though, that the revenues aren't going to be available for this fiscal year. So that's going to, it's hard to say what they're going to do for the 16 budget. I really just don't know. And ironically, we're putting together the 17 budget right now in our office without a 16 budget in place. So that becomes very difficult. Most likely, I'm assuming we'll probably go in with the same request as we did for 16. We're still looking at that, but that's my hope. But, it's a lot up in the air right now.
I don't think I said we're missing about $19 million in GRF from our grants. I don't know if I said that number before.
No, thank you that you did not. So that's good to have that specific number. Did you have a question, Kim?
I have feedback.
Feedback.
We got the feedback.
Yeah, sure, we're at any point, yes.
Catherine Martin's from Crystal Lake, and one thing I would ask of the state library and Rails is, if in your newsletters, which my trustees read, if you could come up with a way to succinctly describe that basically, we don't know when this money is coming, and don't hold your breath on the per capita grant in particular, because the piece that came out, was it yesterday, made it sound like half of the per capita was coming. And so my trustees are like, hoo-hoo, we're getting half of it. And so I understand the complexity of the funding, but for me to just listen to you and then try to take that message back to my 9 trustees, it's a lot. It helps to have something succinctly stated in the official newsletters that come out from both the state library and Rails.
And ILA, right.
And ILA.
Okay.
Catherine, you're talking about the ILA communique that came out about the bill that was signed?
Must have been, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or it could have been Rails
I don't
too.
know, I read them and.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily always sure it's coming from.
Right, and I,
It did sound like half of the per capita grants were going to be funded, and that's not.
I think it was ILA, but I think we probably quoted ILA or something, but, and, I mean, yeah, so, yes, that's a very good point. And I'm gonna actually I'm going to ILA later, I can talk to Bob about it.
That would help us a lot.
Yeah. And so,
Telling the same story.
Yep.
Ann
What
and
other
Amanda,
questions?
this is-
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Dee. It's Paul in New Lenox. A question for Ann and Amanda. I know you'd give us an example of the different funding sources for literacy. Could you give us an overview again of what the funding sources are for the public library per capita grant? What different pots of money make up those grants?
Want me to talk about it?
Sure.
Yeah, I mean.
And there's federal money too.
Yes, so any per capita grants, it's split between general revenue fund, live and learn fund, and potentially some federal money as well.
Yes.
So if you're looking at strictly general revenue fund and live and learn, it looks like we got about 56% of the money, but there's still, we still got to figure out how we're going to do that.
Thank you.
Didn't you say that Live and Learn is funded by a transfer from general revenue?
Yes, yes. So even though, yes, we can actually cut the checks now and get them to the comptroller, there still would be a delay in getting those payments issued, just because of the state of GRF right now.
And we haven't had a Live and Learn transfer, deposit, whatever word you
Right,
use,
since May.
last May. Okay,
So there's about $1 million in that account to, when we have about, 20 million in appropriations. So it's just a matter of, communicate. Usually they'll give us, 2 or 3 months transfer. I'll work with Greg and we'll get vouchers released. And that's probably what will happen again. I just don't know, with all the backlog and what's happening, I just don't know when they'll be willing to release any funds.
Paul, to give you added perspective, in fiscal 15, our public library per capita grants, not talking about what source of funding, but our public library per capita grants totaled about $15.2 million. The bill that was signed on Monday, which is equalization, public library per capita, and system area per capita that share that one appropriation, included about 16 million.
Those are useful numbers. Thank you, Ann.
Are there other
Hi,
questions?
This is Debbie. Yeah, Dee, this is Debbie. I'm at ILA headquarters, and Bob Doyle was in the room a few minutes ago.
Oh,
and,
good.
He just wanted me to point out that in the ILA newsletter, it does say the state library will have to determine how this partial grant funding will be dispersed. So obviously, everybody will work on that message that goes out, the state library and Rails and ILA as well, to make sure, clear messages do go out. It's just that, there's still a lot unknown. So anyway, Bob wanted me to mention that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a point of clarification. Amanda, you were very helpful when you talked to ISLAC in September about the perception of legislators about what grants fund, like that they think of grants as maybe as icing on the cake, extra money in our pockets, you know, for extra projects above and beyond. Do they really have a concept that there is something like library systems that are 100% funded by grant money?
I think there are some legislators who are aware of the library and the issues, but I guarantee you there's quite a bit, and Ian, correct me if I'm wrong, who don't understand the funding mechanism. I've been with the Secretary of State for 10 years, and I feel like I finally have a grasp on library funding. So it is a very complicated issue. And so I think that goes back to, you know, it does help when ILA and the libraries can get their message out to the legislators that, you know, this is, you know, operations. This is, you know, keeping delivery going. This is keeping the doors open for libraries, that this isn't just, you know, a reading program for kids after school. This is, you know, actually keeping the doors open. So Anne and Greg try to get that message across as much as they can, but, you know, but it's, we can only do so much. So, you know, it again gets back to, you know, everyone in their districts communicating with your own legislator on how important these grants are and what it actually means. So, and in that same vein, you know, here's the complicating issue with that is there's lots of competing interests for these monies. So not only are, you know, we're trying to keep libraries open, we're also trying to keep, you know, seniors getting meals, you know, who are low income, keeping developmentally disabled people funding for them. So there are a lot of competing interests for these state dollars. So that,
oh my, yes.
Yeah, so that adds to the complication. But it does not hurt for you guys to get your message out and to talk to your legislators, because I do know for quite a few this is a very important issue for them. But we, you know, there's a lot of new faces in the General Assembly now too, and they may not be as familiar with what all this money goes for.
We have very few in this portfolio of projects and grants and services. There are very few things that are just 1 year of funding and it's done. It's not coming back year after year after year, whether we're talking about the library systems that use the grants for operations or the software that powers the Talking Book and Braille service online catalog. I mean, most of the expenses that we pay we see them every single year. There are very, very few things in what we do that's just, you fund it once, it's done, it's over, the door is shut, the report is written.
Yes, question here in Vernon. Yes, Denise.
Hi, this is Denise Raleigh at Vernon, and I'm hearing that there's two types of timing that we're going to be waiting on. One is the actual process of receiving the dollars after you decide. But do you have any sense of the timing that the decision making will take place at the state library? I think that would be helpful when we're talking with other people in the library world here, is to get a sense of what you anticipate will be the timing on at least the decision making.
Well, of course, we're working as hard and fast as we can, but remember, everyone, there are a number of considerations in the Secretary's office writ large. This has been a, God bless her, tremendously challenging budget year. And, you know, having some funding in the law that we just saw on Monday, I mean, there's so many discussions that need to be held office-wide, and there's so many tentacles. You know, there are 22, 23 departments, so believe me, everybody in the office is aware of the necessity to move quickly, and we are doing the very best we can. I cannot give you a time frame.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
And hey, this is Jim Deiters at Vernon. Is there somebody we should be thanking for at least this seems like something's moving along here finally, so is there somebody we should be thanking, reaching out to specifically? Are you aware of anyone?
You know, and I will just say, we were very lucky. Things were moving fast and furiously the week before last, and we got a call to say, look, you're going to get some money for basically to pay your pressures, like, you know, keeping our firewall safe so we don't have any data breaches, being able to keep our facilities open. So we threw some numbers together, and I'll be honest, it did not include grants because we were told that's not really what was going to be considered at that time. They were strictly looking at like heavy operational pressures.
Yep.
So we gave some numbers, very small numbers, to the General Assembly. The next morning when I came into work, they had passed our entire bill just striking out general revenue fund. And also they told us, you're probably not going to get 10 million in general revenue fund. That's not going to happen. We got 10 million in general revenue fund. They only funded 28 million total out of that bill in general revenue fund. So we were very fortunate. I think, to be honest, I think it goes to that the Secretary has a very good relationship with both the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. I think there was a lot of things the governor wanted in that bill as well. So I think he was hesitant to come back and say, hey, I'm not going to sign this, because he got funding for a lot of his operational needs as well. So I think it's hard to pinpoint exactly who to thank. I mean, it can't hurt to thank your own regional legislator and explain to them that, you know, there's still funding to be had. We appreciate what we got, but there's still more. But I really think the stars aligned for us, and we really lucked out.
We got about $23 million in state funding with this particular bill. So that's, woohoo! That's good news.
It is
Very
good news. It's very good news. I think, you know, given that a week ago we had nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Better than nothing.
Well, I think, you know, I'm going to defer my Rails budget report because there's really not anything to say, as you can probably well imagine, except that we have a healthy reserve, and we're, you know, we have a healthy reserve and business as usual at this point. But I think the segues to advocacy and gratitude and all that, Jim and Denise are the co-chairs of the ILA Advocacy Committee this year. And I think it would be great to, why don't we segue into what you guys want to say? We can continue talking about the whole, you know, financial thing as long as we want to. But I think the timing on this. Yep.
Could I just ask, are we going to have any more questions for Amanda? Not that she doesn't love to hang around with us, but I know she's just crazy busy.
Do we have any more questions for Amanda? Do Jim and do you guys have any more like advocacy related?
Not specific
Okay.
to Amanda.
Amanda, we so appreciate your
Thank you.
your knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And her quick work.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much.
No problem. And if any questions come up, feel free to have Ann, you know, reach out to me, and, you know, we can disseminate those. So thank you,
All right.
everybody.
That's awesome. Thank you.
So much. Yes, yes.
Okay, so Denise and Jim, why don't you take it away? And like I said, we can keep talking as long as we need to about this.
Well, thank you for inviting us to talk. And one of the first things we talked after Monday's news was about as everyone in this room and probably everyone out there already knows, you know, it's great to have a great relationship with your legislator. And we thought this would be a very opportune time to reach out based on the news from Monday. Of course, I'm a little less excited as I was when I thought we had, and again, me too, I thought we had over 50% of our per capita as well. But, you know, toning that down just a little bit and saying that there's a lot of work to be done before any funds are going to get to you, we still think, and Kip Kolkmeyer also believes, that this is a great opportunity for people who want to reach out to their legislators. And so I think we're going to just recap some of the discussion that took place at Peoria at ILA. And I also brought, and we'll post these at a number of locations today after this meeting, or we can hand out some of them. but for the vote totals on Monday. These are the Senate and the representatives, and it was like in the House, it was 107 to 1 and 1 present. And in the Senate, it was 53 yeas and 0 nays. So, just to look through and make sure before you thank your legislator that your legislator actually did vote yes. So we'll be posting these at a number of locations, but we're just trying to make it easy for everyone. So we were just going, and again, this is an opportunity to have that discussion, as Kip said, thank them for voting yes, but also ask them to finish that state budget so that we're not in this, this continual flux. And so we're going to, we're going to quickly go through some of the key points. We have a handout that we'll post with this as well. And this is just some of the wonderful discussion that took place at after the handshake program at Peoria.
Well, this is Jim. One of the things that just caught my eye and made me giggle is that on the agenda it said, what to say about the Illinois budget, and they wanted Denise and I to talk about that. I don't know what to say about that budget, so they're lack up. But yeah, what Denise is referring to is at the ILA conference, there was the joint PPC and Advocacy presentation after the handshake. So we've got a handout that the folks in the room here at Vernon are seeing. Unfortunately, you guys aren't seeing the same thing, but we'll try to.
We can send it out.
Yeah, we can post it afterwards.
Yep.
We're going to kind of go through some of these bullet points just to tell you what we gleaned from that presentation, because Roxanne Bennett from Fox River Valley was on that. Betsy Adamowski was on that. Ed Schock, the former mayor of Elgin, was on there, and then Kip Kochmeyer, who always has wise things to say. So we pulled some of that together, put it on this handout. But the other thing that I just want you to know is go look at the ILA website, because the new website is gorgeous, just so much improved. And on there's advocacy links to the toolkit that has a lot of this good information on there. So I know that's another step, but I'm telling you, go take a look at that. If you're going to go talk to a legislator, or you're reaching out to anybody in town, take a look at that toolkit, because there's great information on there already, that some of it is repetitive of what we're saying here, but it's good to hear it again. So do take a look at the website.
And the website also has been updated. It makes it really easy if you want to find out who your legislator is, and I'm sure everyone in this room and everyone out there on the teleconference know. But for people who pass the word along, that it's really easy to find out who your legislator is, and just they'll if you want your note pre-made. There again, it's not probably the best. The best is your legislator and you're going in to talk to your legislator. But for a good starting point, they've made it very, very easy to advocate.
Yeah, and I think you've got as Denise said, you've got a really easy way to get started, and get started without asking for something right now, because now money came through, and we weren't all kind of expecting no money was going to come through. So take advantage, go home today or tomorrow or whatever, and send a quick email or send a letter or something. Just say thank you. I don't know if your local legislator had anything to do with getting that money pushed through. Maybe that's just Jesse White's, relationships. But, so what? Give him credit. Give him credit. Say thank you. Send a quick email. And that's a good way, I think, just to get the ball rolling. And you're not going out asking for something. You're saying, hey, thanks for the work that you guys have done. So that's what's at the top of our handout today.
And as Karen, I think you mentioned that earlier, is if you would let them know the impact that money brings in a form of a service to their constituents, I think that would go a long way as well. I would probably add that in.
Right. Yeah, so take that opportunity, and I've got to say, I've got Kelly Burke as a rep down by me, and she was integral in getting the per capita, forever that was, 2 years back to full funding, and now we're back to square one. But anyway, I always tell her thank you, and luckily your office is like half a block away from my library. So, but she's great, and so I'll try to do that too. I'll try to reach out to her. She, in fact, sent an email after that was passed and told a few of us in the local area that, hey, look out, this went through. So she's really good about supporting libraries. So hopefully you've got somebody good like that in your area as well.
Could I bump in for just a second? This is Anne. I would add to the list that the 10.1 million to finish up the Public Library Construction Act grant also needs to be on people's lips, even though it's just 5 public libraries remaining in that particular, that are expecting that particular money. This bond program, that $50 million, did miraculous work around our state. And I think that we need to remember what a wonderful thing that was, and that if capital bills are talked about again, that the public libraries are, hello, don't forget us. And one way to do that is to keep reminding them that there's still 10.1 million that needs to be remembered. So, just FYI.
Yeah, that's great. The first thing on our, thank you, Ann. The first thing that's on our list is advocacy comes from all levels. So it's not just directors. A lot of folks have great trustees. There's a couple of trustees on our advocacy committee. So it doesn't have to be just the directors getting out there and advocating. It can come from all levels. Your front line, sometimes your circulation people are the best people to advocate for. When I first joined advocacy, I thought it was just about advocating for libraries. I'm like, oh, that's great. I can advocate for libraries. But no, this is really about the political end of advocating for libraries. So, but you can have everybody doing that, board members, your friends, your foundation, that kind of thing. It could come from all different levels. Do you want to take this one? Yeah.
The second one is keep your message to one issue at a time. And Ed Schock, who was the mayor of Elgin and accomplished great things, and we were so lucky to have him join us in Peoria, talked about really, to some degree, you are in sales when you go out there. He says you're always competing. A good need is competing with another good need. And I think Ed just made that point over and over, but when you're going to talk with someone, make it easy for them to understand what you're there for. But he said, you really are in sales at that point. And he says, leave your takeaway when you leave, use beautiful pictures, build the number of people that will win if your good need gets advocated for. So that was an Ed Schock one. He was just saying, make it simple for them to remember why you visited.
Denise is going to share, I hope she'll share, a great Ed Schock story at some point. So before we wrap up, make sure she tells you that story. It's a good one. But another thing on this list is build relationships with your legislators before. And that's exactly what we were talking about today is like, hey, some money came through. We weren't really expecting any money. This is a great opportunity. If you haven't met or spoken or emailed or whatever, this is a great opportunity to do something before you actually need them to do something for you. Just say thank you. So build those relationships before you actually need anything or you're going in there with a request.
And the next one is politicians ascend. And this was a Roxanne Bennett. This is one of the points she made in Peoria. And she was just talking about the number of people who have changed jobs, near in her district. Talking about Karen McConaughey, who's now on Kane County Board, who was something different just a few years ago. And she's saying, yeah, pay attention, realize whoever they are, at what level they are. And you guys, I'm sure I'm telling you, I'm not really telling this crowd anything, but her stories are, they do end up in a higher office. So building those relationships when they're first elected is very important.
The next couple ones on the list, I think all came from Kip Kolkmeyer, who I think almost all of us unanimously love. But just his things are always share your success stories. And one of the things I think, again, it came from him was that stories quite often hit harder than statistics. So if you can share an individual story, some kind of success story, whether it's a child, whether it's a new program, an initiative, those might be a better selling point than just giving a list of all the statistics. And I know that's different for me because every year I create these statistics and do all these things at the end of the year, but he recommended that maybe using stories, telling some kind of recent event, some kind of hot topic, telling that story, it might be a more effective way to get out to your legislators. So that kind of ties into the next one. Stay relative, highlight the hot topics. What is important in your town? What is going on that the library has been integral part of? What does the library help done for economic development, or what is it that, you've opened a computer lab and now people can come in and do training there. Stay on those kind of things because, again, politicians, legislators have got other things going on than the library. We know that the library is the most important thing, but they want to hear what other things are going on, how the library is helping the town grow or the village or whatever community you're in. So that was a neat one too. Kip also said about tapping into ideals. Now, I don't know how you would be successful in that, but he said a lot of what's going on in politics today is about ideals, big picture things, we're for this, not, so I don't know how you would communicate that, but if you can tap into the ideals of your local rep, that could be a good way to do it too. Emotions, appeal to emotions, let them know that let your local legislator know that they have the best library in the state. So I know we all have the best library, but make that pitch that your library is the best library and doing the best for your communities.
Yeah, another one that Roxanne is you have, in a number of places in the state, the library director may not hold the same political views as the legislator. But she was saying and she was telling me some stories yesterday when she was telling me she could not be here herself, but she was saying that they do listen to you. She's got a lot of Republican, and she probably would say she's not Republican, legislators, but how effective she's been just because it's like person to person. We don't hold the same beliefs. But by the way, we both have kids, we both do this, we both do that. She said there's a lot of ways to build rapport with them, and that it's very, very important. And she was talking about success stories of when she will have, she'll take the time to walk a legislator out the door, and then she'll hear the legislator come in the next time, and she's kind of talking what Roxanne had talked about. So she was just saying, it's like you have to leave your political beliefs at the door and just know that these people can impact you, and you need the relationship with whatever party they are.
Next one, invite. The next one on the list is invite local officials to meet with community members at your library. And I know some libraries have done a great job. Some people actually have offices in their libraries and stuff. So that's one of those points that might not work out great for every library. You might not want to have politics in your building, and some board members don't want that anywhere near you, but I know other libraries have had great successes with actually having offices and town hall meetings and that kind of thing. So something to consider if it works for your communities. That might be a way to bring folks in. They can then use your facility to get out to their constituents. But that's an option too if that works for your setup at your library and your community.
The next one is the face-to-face versus phone. And this, I'd just like to tell, and I will tell that other, I was going to hold that one Ed Chalk story
well,
to the end.
This is actually that face-to-face one, too, that came from the presentation, but there's also, I saw on the ILA website, one of their, 10 advocacy lists. It said something like, face-to-face is better than phone is better than email, that kind of thing. So the hierarchy is, if you can get face-to-face, great. If you can talk to them on the phone in person, great. And then, emails, or probably a letter, probably a handwritten letter next, and then an email last. But any way you can communicate is great, but make sure you, if you can, see them in person.
Yeah, and Ed was just telling, he was 12 years our mayor, and he was actually able to really garner some great funding from the state of Illinois. And he says government, we all know that, what we can do, how we can impact the people in our community. But he was just saying that Elgin's riverfront was pretty much old car dealerships for years and years and years. So the city bought up some property, and then they went to talk to they talked to their Republican legislators in person and their Democrat legislators, and then they visited the Governor Quinn. And he said, and again, we knew he was interested in environmental. So he talked to all of his representatives. He talked to all the people down the river who would benefit from him cleaning up the riverfront. And again, so he had so many constituents that would benefit from the state of Illinois funding the riverfront renewal project, that when he went to talk to Governor Quinn was very, very interested. He said, of course, what did he have? We had great graphics of what the riverfront would look like after the change was made. But he said, that's how Governor Quinn granted him the amount of funding that he had to work with. But he said inviting him back every time he was in town to see what had happened was also an essential part of that whole success story for Elgin.
Yeah, that's a great one. One other thing that folks have said over and over is get to know the legislators' staff. So say, if you can get in with one of their staff members who's probably got their ear most of the day or whatever, get in with that person. So if you can find who their number one person is, get a hold of that person, get friendly with that person. That way the message that you're trying to get to the local politician, the message are going to get there if you can get in good with the staff member. I thought that was, I've never had that success, but I think that's great. So that's not totally true. I get an email from Kelly's. We talked about this already, but, looking for things to give. So as we said, or giving a thank you, that kind of thing. Instead of us always asking, if at Christmas time you can send a little note with, I don't know, a bookmark in it, whatever, that kind of thing. If there's ways to give, ways to reach out rather than every time you approach them, you're asking for something. I think that's important too. These last two, you want to touch them? Yeah,
Well,
go ahead.
e-government is a no-brainer for everyone. We know that we are a huge part of people's touch with a lot of e-government resources. And the last time, as I will finish up with that great story.
Yeah.
And as Carol well knows, Ed Schock's involvement in our library being located on the riverfront and being part of that riverfront development. But again, this was the library's relationship with him at that time. So that's, how many years ago is that, Carol?
As he's been.
2003, so it's got to be about, it's before our time at Gail Borden. That's the story.
That's about 2001,
Yeah, about
2002.
But Ed really wanted a brand-new library to be located on this wonderful riverfront cleaned-up property that he had worked so hard to do. But because of his relationship with the library, negotiations broke down. There was a manufacturer, asphalt manufacturer, that was on where we're located right now. Again, we're a CAT site. We were cleaned up, but negotiations really broke down. So Ed Schock brought everyone to City Hall, had the library people on one end and the seller, the asphalt manufacturer on the other end. He spent 3 or 4 hours walking between groups to fix the deal and bring the library to this cleaned up riverfront. So it's what a relationship between a library and a mayor can do as well. And it's a really great success story, and that's why we're located on the Fox River.
Yeah, I like that one. I think
Yeah.
you had said that he said, we're coming in here, we're locking the doors, I'm bringing in lunch, and then until this gets done, nobody's going anywhere.
Yeah.
So that's everything through the handout that we have today, and covering the after the handshake presentation. There's a couple other things that I wanted to touch upon. I don't know if Denise had other things, but that we wanted to tell you. The legislative meetups.
No.
Yeah, so we've got the legislative meetups coming up. Oh.
She's going to do this.
Okay, cover this.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got something that Dee's going to cover for us. Legislative meetups, there's 5 this year. So these are all in that second week of February over the President's Day weekend. And there's the new one this year is in the Bloomington Normal. So we have a couple of great folks down in the middle of the state that are setting up the meetups down in the Bloomington Normal area. But, Buffalo Grove is the one that's been going on for the longest, and Cindy's hosting us today. She's going to coordinate that. But, again, we've got 5 of them this year. And just a few years back, we just had the 3 going.
You're
so
right.
we keep growing it each year. I've got the paperwork here. It's on the ILA website, all the dates, a register. I did it yesterday, the day before, and it went seamlessly. I did get 2 email responses, so if you get 2 emails, you didn't pay twice, just so you know. I checked on that one. But yeah, the legislative meetups is one thing that we want to make sure. See if you can get your trustees out to these events, see if you can get out to these events, and then we're going to need people recruiting legislators to get to these events. Key. The new ILA website. Go ahead.
Or I could do that one.
Yeah.
Okay. And we are working on, and I don't know if you've already touched on that, perhaps a new FOIA hotline for just FOIA questions. Thank you, Dee, to reaching out to Ansel Link, and it looks like that it looks positive because the municipal clerks already have one, and we'd be following a model that already exists. So I'm sure there's more work to be done on that, but that's what we're working on that I think will help a lot of our members through some of these real difficult and issues about FOIA.
Yeah, we're looking at that as kind of and I think this was Denise's brainchild, right? This is a great idea. I think this is some statewide, so it's not just for rails. This is something we're looking at trying to do statewide, and it kind of like a ready reference type of thing, not where you could get into deep, long questions about, hey, how do I respond, in length to this? It's like, do I respond to this? Do I not respond to this? Is this real? Do I need to,
Yeah, it's not, and it's not to replace your attorney, but it's for, it's for hard questions that you need a quick response on. And again, they stay right on top of what the group is coming out with. And again, there's always these little changes every time. What's that group, the PAC group?
Public access.
Yeah, it makes a different change. So we think this will be helpful. And again, this was, Dee brought this to us saying that this was a member concern. And so thank you for bringing it up, representing your membership.
I want to also mention again that the new ILA website, you've got to take a look at it, especially for all the things, but advocacy, the toolkit and all the stuff for the advocacy is great in there. Again, I think Denise already said, you can type in your zip code and your +4 on your zip. It's going to tell you exactly who your local people are. It's all built into this thing, so it's not like you have to go out there and create this. It's all built right into it. It's wonderful. So get in there, put yourself on the LAN, the Legislative Action Network. That way, if emails, you'll get an email blast when you need to contact your legislators about something that's on the table and it needs a quick response. Get your name in there. Just load yourself in there. It'll take 5 minutes. And we collected some stuff down at Peoria just on paper, and then I think Celeste loaded them in there. But if you guys can go online, if you're not on there, please do that for us. But it's really great, and a lot of things that we covered today on this handout are right in there in that toolkit already. So you hear the same things from the people in the know. Obviously, it must be the way to do this kind of stuff because it's already in there beyond what we've created today. Do you want to touch that one? That was your baby, too.
The other thing, I think we're going to, I don't know what kind of success we're going to have because we're just starting our efforts on this, is to try and get library district or city library locations listed on the real estate listings. So that's we're going to reach out. We'll let you know how that goes, but we think people should know what library district or not library district that they're in.
Yeah, that seems to happen. I hear a lot about schools, and we just heard a story about the library that somebody thought they were in the district, in a taxing district for a library. They moved into the house, found out they weren't, and then when they were upset when they had to go and pay that annual bill. So I think that'd be great. Just like you want to know what school district you're in when you buy a house or a piece of property, you also want to know what library service you guys. Some people choose not to because they don't want to get in pay taxes, and you know how that goes for those folks. But I think that would be a wonderful thing to be right there on the listing. So a couple closing things. Go back today and send a quick email letter to your local representative. Tell them thank you for the money that was released. If you can check out the new ILA website, if you can register for the LAN, and if you can register for the legislative meetups, that'd be great. Those are a couple of things that are coming up. Those will be in February over that President's Day weekend, and then down south on the 19th, that following Friday, it will be Edwardsville and then Bloomington Normal. Yeah, anything else?
I think that's
it
our
for
update.
Denise and I, yeah.
I have a comment. When you talked about finding an opportunity to give them something, one of the things I learned a long time ago is when you have two people running for the same office, you make a personal contribution to both.
Okay.
And it doesn't have to be it's not the library, it's your personal one. They know that kind of thing. So then whoever wins, you've made a contribution to them.
Oh,
and
that's
then
smart.
once they're in office, when they have those fundraisers, it's best if you can turn up, but if you can't, make a small contribution. And I'm talking about $25. But you get on the list and you're on their
Name.
That's great.
I think that's real important.
That's
Good
great.
investment.
Yeah. Right.
Absolutely.
The other thing that we do, and I don't think it's real controversial, but we let them shoot commercials in our library. It really, when they ask, it doesn't matter which party they're from, we are open to it. And again, I always, we use as an opportunity to get to know that legislator. And again, win or lose, it's open to anyone who's running for office. It's a great facility. We're beautiful, and we have had a number of legislators shoot their commercials in our library.
That's great.
We had a question from a streamer about where the FOIA hotline is, and I replied it doesn't exist yet. But
It's up here.
we certainly will let people know when.
Yeah, I can say a little bit more about that, but really just a little because it's we're working on it. We know how important an issue, how difficult an issue FOIA is for libraries all across Illinois. So we are we're working on it, but it's not going to happen within the next couple of months, I don't think. But in the meantime, if you get a FOIA and you need help, you can definitely call Rails. I mean, we're definitely doing, we've kind of been sort of mediating some of these issues. So the FOIA hotline would just be more of a formalized, and hotline, what does that even mean? I mean, I think ready reference is a good way of putting it, Jim, and it would not be available 24 hours, as someone asked me. Fortunately, FOIA hasn't yet reached
Yeah, I don't work on it
that.
at 2 in the morning.
Right, I know. Although it can certainly keep you awake, right? So anyway, stay tuned on that. I'm not even going to mention the fact that we haven't gotten any lately. Knock on Formica. Yeah. Any other questions out there, Mary?
No, that's the only one from streamers we have.
So there's one other. We got a lot of budget and legislative advocacy news these days, I guess. I don't know how many of you are aware of that Kip Kolkmeyer, who, as you say, Jim, we all love, that his situation is changing. He actually is going to be sort of stepping back a little bit. He is going to be starting in January, he's going to officially be the general counsel for ILA, sort of ILA's attorney, which they've never really had. For example, he might be someone who could assist us with the FOIA hotline, just as an example. He actually, due to kinds of family-related issues, I guess that many of us face at certain points, is not able to live in Springfield anymore. He's moved to Colorado, and so it's pretty hard to commute from Colorado to Springfield or even Chicago. So he is not going to be the sort of on-the-ground legislative consultant for ILA anymore. They will be hiring someone soon and Kip will continue to oversee the strategy and be present at many things, many of the events that he has been present at for 20-something years, I think.
5, 7.
But he will not be in Springfield for us. So that is too bad. But on the other hand, he's not going away, so he will still be around to help us. And he said that he would never, you would have to tear the library stuff away from him. He's very dedicated to it, as you know. So any questions? I'm sure we have questions about something all around so maybe is this a good time to go to the sites, I think? Okay. So are there questions in Burr Ridge about anything, or comments or feedback?
Not at this time, Dee.
Okay. In Coal Valley?
No questions.
East Peoria?
Not at this time.
How about in Aurora?
No questions.
Cherry Valley?
No questions here, Dee.
Do we have Freeport, Wes?
They're on the live stream. They're just,
Oh, okay, that's right.
we're in the chat, so.
Okay, any questions or comments at ILA in Chicago?
Nope, no questions here, Dee.
ISL, I see that Pat Bowes is still with us. Anything you want to
No, except
See?
our Christmas potluck is starting in 15 minutes, so I'll
Okay. Wow, all right, well, we're glad. All right, well,
Thanks.
please thank Anne and everybody.
I will.
For, I think the report that she gave was really helpful. It's definitely a case of the glass is half empty and the glass is half full,
That's
I guess.
right.
But,
Happy
all
holidays.
right,
to
well,
all of you.
enjoy. How about Kankakee? I think somebody is there. No, maybe not.
Dee Freeport says they just got connected, but they don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you, Freeport. Hello out there. How about LaSalle? Any questions in LaSalle?
We're good here. Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, Christy. How about New Lenox?
No questions here. Thanks, Dee.
How about Quincy? Or Sterling? All right, Sycamore? Vernon? Oh. Sycamore? Sterling?
No questions at Sycamore. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. How about Vernon? Had enough, huh? For now? Okay, well, I think this was a very useful. I think it was great. So just, I guess, a couple more words about the Rails budget. As I said, we have a very healthy reserve. I don't remember exactly how many months we have at this point, but it's somewhere near 20 at current expenditure levels. So, as I said, business as usual, and some of, we've had these cash flow situations in the past. We have one currently. Obviously, having a reserve is very important, and this is why we were reluctant to spend it all. This is the schizophrenic situation that we're in, where we have money in the bank, but there's no cash coming in, and you don't know. It's very hard to plan, because you want to keep doing things. You have to keep doing things. That's what the money is for. But on the other hand, you want to be sure you have enough to sustain you when things become wacky as they currently are. So, but at this point, business as usual. I do not think this is the case for Heartland. I do not. I don't have any, specific information about what their plans are. Leslie and I do talk on a regular basis, but they certainly do not have a reserve anywhere near the size of ours, and so, that is a potential, big problem for libraries in the southern part of the state. Questions anywhere? All right. Yes.
I just recently at my library this past week had an incident that is going to cost us in excess of $20,000 to have some repair work done. Fortunately, it falls under an emergency situation. Otherwise, we'd have to go to bid on it. Is there any way we can talk to legislation about raising that $20,000 bid requirement? You virtually can't have anything done for less than $20,000 now. And it actually winds up costing us more money, because you have to hire an architect, you have to go through the bid process, and something that costs you $20,000 could wind up costing you $25,000, $28,000, $30,000 after you go through all the bidding.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything we can do as collectively or through Rails?
I would think,
Can I offer, I can offer a little something on this, because a couple weeks ago, when I was talking to my attorney, he mentioned to me that there was a bill that was supported by both houses that was presented to the governor that would have raised the bid amount to $25,000. Unfortunately, two things. One, libraries weren't part of it. Anybody remember when it went from 10 to 20?
Yeah.
Libraries weren't part of it. We had to be added on to a follow-up bill. But it doesn't matter, because the governor vetoed it. And if you want to have some interesting comments, read why the governor vetoed it. In a nutshell, all units of government in Illinois are corrupt, and we can't be trusted with another $5,000. Forgive my editorializing. So he was just recently presented with a bill to do exactly what you're asking, and he said no. That the public bid process is the only way to assure that the taxpayers are really being, having their best interest served. Even though, of course, we can come up with many examples where with that relief of just that few $1,000s would enable us to be much more flexible, allow us to use relationships with contractors that we've built over years to assure that we get a good quality job at a good price.
Right.
The governor said no very recently. So let's get Kip to work on that before.
I was just going to say, we can
I'd like
bring
it
it.
for 50,000, not 25,000. Let them knock us down a little bit.
We want to get some windowsills painted, and it's $28,000.
Sure.
We can bring it to PPC for sure. It is unfortunate that is the atmosphere out there, Scott. You're absolutely right. But we will certainly bring that up to PPC. That's like exactly the kind of thing that they need to know.
My initial worry was that, I don't know how long ago it went from 10 to 20, I couldn't remember, but it said, oh, we just raised that, that kind of
It's been like 10 years since that was raised.
It's been 10
And that was the first time in a long time it had been raised, so it's certainly past due, and it would provide us with a lot of relief and flexibility to better spend our tax dollars.
So, since we're on the topic, and you have been involved in this too, I think, now PPC has been talking at the last couple of meetings, anyway, about two specific legislative issues related to alcohol in libraries, serving alcohol, and tips, right? Weren't you involved in the
I participated in via telephone with the PBC meeting the other day.
So do you guys want to say a little bit about that? Denise and Jim?
Yeah, we should probably talk about that.
I don't want to touch TIF, and I have no idea. That's way.
Okay. Maybe Scott
We'll
will talk
pass
about
that back to Scott,
because this is certainly of
that is
interest to
complex.
everybody out there. So, you want to talk about the alcohol?
Oh, the alcohol, it turns out, it's a 10-page document. It's a really funny statewide ban on alcohol in government places, except for about 1 million people that have individual waivers. If you're a municipal library, you are fine, following all the rules. However, if you are a district library, you are not covered other than 6 Mile.
Right, 6 Mile Regional
Library, who
District,
actually.
Tina Hubert's library down south.
That actually has a.
They are specifically mentioned as an exemption.
So we're talking about asking in the next legislative cycle about being included, district libraries being included with an exemption, and we're kind of. Scott Poynton is the lead guy working on this, and it's kind of come down to two different ways of considering this. Is would we like to be limited by the number of events, or like the type of events, and base it on a policy by our board members or by our board of trustees? So it's like kind of local control versus just like saying flat out. I think the one he's got in front of us is 15 events, and it's
That's what Scott had said, 15. That way you could have, if you had a monthly event, and then you could have 3 special ones. So if he was, I think, hesitant to say put a number on it. Rather, he said describe the kind of event you could have, because he was just worried the number would limit you too much. But that's it. We're either going to limit it. I think Kip recommended that you have some kind of limiter, not just the free-for-all that we're going to have alcohol all the time at the library. So you put a number on it, or you put a reason on it. And so one of the two we'll go with, because I think that was Kip's recommendation.
Yeah. Does anybody have any thoughts on that?
I have an empty pole barn, and I wanted to raise medical marijuana.
We can put that down.
We can bring that to
To each their own, whatever.
Alternative revenue streams are important. Do you want to say a little bit about the TIF thing?
Sure. The crux of the conversation was about the TIF law that does allow library districts to get money back, or libraries, I don't know if it's just districts, libraries to get money back from a TIF to deal with, a residential TIF, to deal with the residents who have moved in and are using your services, and you're not getting any commensurate revenue to go with that. I think Fremont was the first library in the state that was able to take advantage of this law that Tommy Meehan from Indian Trails had worked hard to get passed. So when I made our first claims to get reimbursement, there was no guidance. There's nothing out there that said how to do it. So I just read the law and jumped in. And the key phrase in the law is net increase in the number of persons eligible to obtain a library card. To which I said, well, if I got a high-rise condo building, I don't know how many people live there, but let's use some method to figure out the population that's going to come out of this building and then get our per capita costs associated with that. So I incorporated the Naperville formula. If you're familiar with the Naperville formula, it's a population density formula. It says if you have a 3-bedroom house or multi-dwelling unit, the population density will be 2.7. But if it's a 4-bedroom, it might be 4.1 or whatever. So I used that times every 1, 2, and 3-bedroom condo, and I came up with a number. Our village agreed with my methodology, and it was pretty smooth sailing for the most part. We had a stumbling block over, though, was the dollar amount that you request as an annual amount for reimbursement. The TIF has a 2% setback to give libraries some money back, but only after they pay their other bills. So I make my request, and they say, we agree with all the numbers. However, we don't have any money to give you. Right. See you next year. So my contention was, I'll see you next year, but I want all the money that I didn't get this year, plus next year's request. Our village went back and forth on that a little bit. They ended up passing an ordinance mandating that it is a cumulative total. That's great. So for me right now, they can pay us. This year we're going to get $8,600 back from the TIF. My annual request is over $20,000. They owe us cumulatively $90,000. It keeps rolling forward. So for us, that was great. But another village, another library district with another village had a problem when they tried to incorporate the same theory, formula we used. They were told, yeah, the number of persons eligible, sure, we agree with that. But later in the law, there's a sentence that says, the library has to provide convincing evidence of the impact of the new residents. And fortunately, my village never bothered with that. I told them the impact is all eligible persons could impact us, not just the people that have a library card. So I thought that's kind of where they were going to go. Well, this other village, that is where they went, and they were mandating you have to bring in a library card application to prove impact. Yeah, and a lot of people use this that don't have library cards, so you're underrepresenting the impact. Kip Kolkmeyer, though, he came up with a really nice way to kind of reframe the argument, and really just tried to get this whole convincing evidence either removed from the law, which would require statutory intervention, which maybe we don't want to ask Springfield to open up another can of worms. You ever try to change one word in a policy? And then okay. So Kip came up with a great idea. The clear and convincing evidence is not from us with library cards. It's from documents your village already has on file, the plan development that the developer presented to them to get the approval for the development in the first place. That document should have population density estimates provided by the developer. So I think Kip's going to be talking with, there is a TIF association in Illinois, kind of their own little lobby group, and they'll be talking, trying to find some mutual ground, and maybe ILA, my suggestion was ILA, State Library, Rails, put out some guidance for libraries that if you have, I call it the, so you're going to have a residential TIF. Here's the steps you follow to claim your reimbursement. And here's how you address with your board that the convincing evidence you need of population impacting the library is going to be already in your files.
Yeah, the negative aspect of that is they'll come up with a formula that's not the same as yours.
No. It's possible, and maybe part of the conversation will be, really the conversation should be, how do you prove the number of eligible persons that creates the impact on your library? What evidence do you need to create that? Naperville formula is already a widely accepted formula used by schools and other units of government. We already incorporated too into our developer donation agreement, which is a whole other ball of wax. But yeah, the argument should be, it should not be prove the impact. The fact that the legislation exists shows that Springfield acknowledges that we are impacted by these residents. So it's not proving impact, it's coming up with how much of an impact is it, go to the population density models that the developer had already created.
Yeah, and I think what Kip said is he was in on that conversation when they were creating it, and that was the spirit of the conversation, but now people are changing
Absolutely.
it.
We need to get everybody who was in the room when the law was created back together again, get the band back together, have them say, yes, our point was that the number of persons eligible is going to be the impact, not the fact that there is impact to begin with.
Dee, I have a couple of.
Yeah.
First, I've got to request that speakers identify themselves because people can't see them.
Scott Davis, Fremont Public Library.
And the other one is on a different topic, but the question is, what about library bathroom standards in relation to gender identity? Are there any official conversations being held? The schools are all having this discussion with legal ramifications.
And I've got one other thing to add. If anybody is having private conversations, whispering, everyone can hear it. So just be advised of that if you think you're silent, you're not. It's the microphones pick up everything, so.
Thank you, Wes. That's a really interesting and important question, I think, that got asked about the bathrooms and gender. I don't know of any conversations that are.
OSHA issued something about you're supposed to allow, and this is for at least employees, this is Pam from St. Charles, that you allow people to use the bathroom with the identity that they present. I thought there was an OSHA.
I don't know.
OSHA guidelines.
This was a conversation on the.
This-
Was that it?
So that's, could you say who you are?
Oh, sorry, Amy from Deerfield.
Yeah, maybe it was on the director.
I think it was, and
But I thought it was an OSHA thing. And basically, it was however someone presents, that's the bathroom that you should allow them to use. There should be no kind of intervention, whether or not their sexual organs match their
An
presentation.
individual,
said-
in other words, instead of
Kay,
what we've,
you're
oh, I'm
just-
sorry, Kay Grabby Lakeford, instead of having, the men's room with 6, stalls in it, we've done individual.
Yeah.
So you pick up whatever, and ours are locked, you pick up whatever key you want, use whichever one you want.
So these are gender neutral bathrooms?
Well, it says men and women, but you need the key, so whatever, if you pick up the
Okay.
men's key, feel free.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's an individual, you're not gonna be impacting anybody else, and staff don't pay any attention.
I think moving, like for us, we're looking at doing some renovations, we've got Pam from St. Charles. And all of our bathrooms that we renovate will be gender neutral.
Right.
Moving forward, and
It's a
be
good idea, I think
individual.
that's a good way to go,
Yeah.
but ours are done, so.
Right, exactly.
So I don't know if that's a complete answer, but it's I think it's something, it's
It has some different legal ramifications.
Yeah.
than Public libraries do, and I think that as public libraries, we can't be questioning whether or not someone's really a woman or a man. If they look like a woman, they go in the woman's bathroom.
Right.
Vice versa.
Okay. Any other questions out there at this point? All right, well, the next item on our agenda is talking about how this is an opportunity for you guys, everybody participating, to talk about dealing with potential property tax freezes, lack of per capita grant funding, and other financial challenges. So, I think I will maybe start this here in Vernon, since there's a lot of us here. Who would like to start us off on this conversation?
I can.
Looks like Cindy does.
This is Cindy from Vernon, the Vernon Library. I actually am very concerned about the funding. We're very fortunate that our library is in a good place, but if Springfield does decide to do a property tax freeze, and I did talk with our local representative just last week, and there's support for a tax freeze on both sides of the aisle. There's also a discussion about reviewing the way property tax are funded and doing some sort of sales tax. I don't know what that would all, or income tax and all these other, there's a lot of discussion. So I actually talked with Ryan and with Matt, and we're going to be hosting on January 21st a round table here at the Vernon Library in Lincolnshire to just sort of talk about alternative funding opportunities, just kind of having a discussion. We're going to try to set up a Skype with Stuart Wilson from Library Strategies. He's out of St. Paul, Minnesota. He is like a fundraising specialist with libraries. So it would be like a Skype call. Matt has, from Lake Zurich, Ela Library, has done some things with passports and using the funding from the passport as a way of bringing in some alternative revenue streams. I don't have any answers, but I wanted to kind of get the conversation started and maybe some of the creative juices flowing. If we kind of brainstormed and talked about it, maybe we would come up with some possible ideas. So that's going to be January 21st, and I'll put something out on the director's list and things too. But it would be open to anybody, but it's going to be up here. And I know this is a trek for many people, but we're going to try to start it up here.
That's great. Thanks, Cindy. Yes, Scott?
Scott Davis, Fremont. I just want to share a frustration that we have. We have building bonds that are coming off the books. Our last bond payment is February of 2018. And our particular building, nice big building, 70,000 plus square feet, we never got a rate increase operationally back when it was built 15 years ago. It's been a little bit of a struggle, but we're doing okay. Property tax freeze would be very, very tough, obviously, for us. But with the bonds coming off, we have an opportunity because our building also has about 10,000 square feet of internal space that was never finished. This is the time when I would love to finish that space. All of our neighboring libraries have done all the maker spaces and teen spaces and incubator spaces and all that. We'd love to get in that game, more collaborative spaces. It's going to take about $3 million we don't have. Bonds coming off. Easy peasy, do another small bond issue, get that done. But we're kind of feeling like we're being held hostage here by Springfield. With their dithering down there and no resolution to just what this property tax freeze will mean, could they at least define it in terms of mechanics, how it would work? We have nothing to go off of. And the clock is ticking on our best opportunity to go to a referendum. It would be next November. Now we're within a year cycle of that, and I can't recommend to my board that we do a small bond issue when instead we might need that money for future operations. So I feel like if some kind of resolution could come from Springfield, we at least could pick a lane and know which way we're going to move forward with this funding. Because it's an opportunity. When your bonds come off, you have that one shot, that one opportunity, your best opportunity to try to get some other funding out of it. So I don't have any question. I just have frustration that this is we're collateral damage to the thing going on in Springfield because we can't pull the trigger on just what we're going to do. And this election in November 2016 could easily come and go, and we'll lose that shot at our cross section of our full constituents that we serve. And if we don't go in that election, then we'll end up with a situation where the bonds will come off. And then we'd be going after the fact, trying to get people to put money back onto the tax bill, which is never going to happen. So please, Springfield, do something, just so we can pick a lane here.
Scott, I was curious, would you be asking for operations?
Can you,
They probably can't
identify
hear.
yourself? Right.
Oh, sorry, Tom Kern, Wakanda Area Library.
That's the question, Tom. We don't know which lane we would choose if we would go operationally. If there's a hard freeze that's going to last for years to come, we definitely need operations.
If there's a hard freeze, you have a door opening for an operations increase. That's what's going to happen at libraries. You can still raise the taxes, you just have to get board approval.
Yeah.
Are there other comments here in Vernon? How about in Burr Ridge?
No comments here in Burr Ridge, Dee.
Okay, how about in Coal Valley?
This is Laura from East Moline, and I'll just say that what my board decided to do was completely fear-based. They're terrified that there's going to be a property tax freeze. And so they decided this year, for the first time in 20 years, to raise their levy, and we will be levying at the max possible for our library this year. And the idea is that we will keep our operational budget as close to the previous budget as possible, and that way we have some room to wiggle if the property freeze does go into effect.
This is Jeff at Coal Valley. My board voted this year to go for a 4.9% increase in our levy, which I'm sure everyone recognizes the significance of that number, in part because of the potential for the freeze, in part for some new programming we'd like to do in the following fiscal year. Just a personal comment, in my opinion, this is not a state issue. Springfield has no skin in this game. They don't levy property tax. They have nothing to lose by forcing it on the rest of us. This is a local issue. Every tax in Illinois is levied by a board or council that you can petition, address, run for office, and so forth. I feel a tremendous resentment that Springfield is getting involved in this issue in the first place. It's not a state issue.
That's an extremely good point, and I would say that that is probably why they are willing to get involved, because they don't have any skin in the game. It's just so cynical. It's just so Illinois. Sorry, but you know.
It'll be like a new insult. That's so.
It's our new bulletin board. So Illinois, I will say that Kip does think that this is a very strong possibility that this will happen. Very strong possibility. Yeah, this is not a crazy idea. I mean, it is a crazy idea. Anybody else in Coal Valley?
This is Nancy Ashbrook at Silvis Public Library. I don't think that the average taxpayer understands the ramifications of a freeze on the property tax. And I think that that is the direction that ILA, ALA, any library group should be addressing. We need to communicate to the public at large that Illinois state government has no skin in the game, that they are not losing anything by doing a property tax, and that the local taxpayer who supports their schools, who supports their libraries, they're losing by this property tax freeze, and that doing this property tax freeze is not helping the state government in any way. It's hurting local government.
Yes, absolutely. You are right. How about East Peoria? Any comments there?
I've been doing a tally, and the most tally marks are under property tax freeze that people are afraid of. Every comment, I think, has been about that. And another one that adds on to that, you know, another place that Springfield doesn't have skin in the game, they're looking at the local governmental units of government, and there's too many local units of government. Will libraries be vulnerable in that respect? Like, who needs a library district? Some of that is coming down from there to say Illinois has the most local units of government in the entire nation. That's another place where they're kind of putting their hand in the local pot where they're state officials.
Thanks, Karen. Do you have something to say about that, Denise?
I do think.
I think I wasn't there then.
Maybe you weren't there. Kip did address that piece of legislation.
This is the local consolidation.
The local consolidation. He said they came up with some good recommendations. However, I think he thought that it was loaded with the anti-union parts of it, and so he didn't think it would get much traction in its current form because of the anti-union parts that are included.
Isn't that report supposed to be issued at the end of this month?
Yes, and that's what he said, but he just said that because it came in, there was a number of governor appointees that has that loaded part of it that he doesn't think the Democrats will cross over, so he doesn't see that moving forward unless there's some changes to that recommendations.
Well, I don't know what it's like in some other areas of the state, but here in central Illinois, this is Gail from the Cuba Library. Here in central Illinois, almost all municipalities and all school districts are going to raise property taxes this year. So almost everyone in our area is going to see an increase in property taxes. And if libraries do it, it will be the smallest amount probably of any of those. But this whole idea of freezing property taxes in Springfield has really backfired here in central Illinois, where we don't have tax caps and things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what that happens, because part of that whole deal was supposed to be if the governor gets tax freezes on property, then he would agree to increase income taxes again. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Interesting.
I mean, the city of Canton is looking at a 15% property tax increase.
Wow, that is a major backfire.
That's a little bit.
Yes.
Interesting.
Huge.
It's kind of like a in-your-face.
Yeah, the city of Peoria just voted on one as well.
Yeah, but the city of Peoria is strictly for roads, for infrastructure. It
But
doesn't
they're
impact-
doing it
Yeah,
because they don't want, they're doing it to keep it from freezing before the property tax freeze.
Well, no, actually, it was in the works as part of their infrastructure improvement, and so they went with what is really a fairly small property tax increase to get the final 1.2 million in to fix their roads. The city of Peoria gets 11% of their total budget is property tax, and right now that funds two things, and that is the Peoria Public Library and their IMRF funding liability. And by the end of 2018, there won't even be enough property tax to fund the pension. So then it'll be the library. And then I think that's where the library is going to end up being very vulnerable.
Did you want to say something, Kim?
So, Catherine Martin's from Crystal Lake, and when we say there's no skin, they have no skin in the game, what that person just said, that's their skin in the game. They're trying to limit property tax so that
Raise
they
income
increase income tax, which would benefit them.
That's been out there
It's
for a
the
long
bait and
time.
switch. Look, this is, but now we can raise this.
Right. That's the whole point.
And it'll probably work.
How about any comments at Aurora?
No comments here.
Cherry Valley? Freeport?
No, they say they don't have comments.
ILA in Chicago? Excuse me.
No comments here.
State Library.
They're at their Christmas.
Yeah, right.
Holiday parties.
Kankakee.
Yeah.
LaSalle.
No, none here, thanks.
Thank you. How about New Lenox?
No comments.
Quincy. Sterling. Or Sycamore?
No comments in Sycamore, thanks.
And how about Vernon again? Anybody else here?
One thing that just popped, this is Jim from at Vernon. One thing that that popped in my head too is they said the percentages. I think a lot of folks don't understand how much of our budget comes from the local property tax. Where a village, or I don't know about the schools, whatever, but their percentages might be 30% or something, where ours is essentially 95 or 97 is coming from that. So essentially is our budget when we have a freeze or we have a limit on it. I don't think everyone gets that. So.
I think that's probably true of most libraries, right?
About 96%.
Yeah.
With no alternative revenue streams.
Right.
Yeah.
Park districts can raise the cost of swim lessons
Right.
and golf.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
They all
The village can raise the cost on building permits.
Right.
We're going to start selling alcohol.
And medical marijuana.
Yeah, medical marijuana.
Well, all right. So we're getting near the end. So I just thought, as I said earlier, business as usual. So I just thought I would run through a list. It's a long list of some of Rail's plans and projects for this year. And these are really, in all cases, I would say, continuations or updates. I mean, basically, our job is resource sharing and, helping libraries and all that, leveraging local libraries, economies of scale, all that. So it's just new ways of doing all that. So I just thought I would run through some of these. We, of course, will continue to expand outreach and CE and member engagement activities. A new thing that we're working on really hard right now is that Rails and Heartland together are bidding on the ILDS service. I think a lot of you know that, or maybe all of you know that Carly manages the contract for the Illinois Library Delivery Service that kind of connects the hubs. And that is, the bid is out from University of Illinois, and Lanter has had that bid. And so we, with Heartland, are responding to that with our proposal, which we think is dynamite. And we think this will improve delivery service all across the state and save money. And that is due, I think, next week. So this is exciting. We're still working on membership standards. We're hoping to have some draft, to go public with some drafts pretty soon, and really start having some serious conversations about how to implement these. Continuing with grants to join our LSAPs. There's 8 libraries out in the Quad City area that are coming back into Prairie Cat. There's a couple of big libraries coming into RSA, including Quincy. Had a very interesting conversation yesterday, looking at Pam Leffler because she was at the meeting, between Link and, which is, I don't know what it stands for, but it's the library. Who's in Link? St. Charles?
St. Charles, Geneva, Batavia, West Chicago, Bloomingdale, Itasca, Franklin Park, who's moving to Swan.
Itasca.
Villa Park.
Yep.
I'm missing someone.
Anyway, Link and Magic, so the libraries around the Geneva, St. Charles area, Itasca area, and Swan, which is the consortium in western suburbs, are having serious conversations about merging. So that's huge, and I'm very excited about that. Continuing with the overlay and a possible pilot project, I believe that Prairie Cat is looking to do a pilot project with Sky River in the new year instead of using OCLC. We and ILA, Rails and ILA are, and the State Library are looking at, I think you all saw that the State Library will not be able to offer their CE programs this year. Spill Me, Synergy, I lead you and on the front lines. Did I leave anything out? I don't think so. But ILA and Rails and the State Library are looking to do a special synergy reunion evaluation event next year. Still trying to figure out what it might be, but to look, I mean, Synergy's been run the same for years, and does it need to be changed or, tweaked in any way? Let's see, we will be submitting an IMLS digitization training grant soon, I think. Looking at ways of using e-read and digital resources to serve the unserved. I'm working with some vendors on that. Continuing to implement the recommendations of the statewide delivery committee, including community delivery partnerships. And let's see, the state library is the state is now a DPLA service hub. We'll be involved in that. Mary is making me launch a podcast, which will be happening in the new year also. And looking to maybe expand our management association offerings to more libraries, our subsidies to more libraries. So you can see we've got plenty of things going on, and we're not letting this budget confusion slow us down, not one bit. So, any questions or any feedback about any of that in Vernon?
You started to say overlay project and then I missed. So what's the status?
Well, we are at this point the working group on this asked Rails staff to talk with every consortium in Illinois about whether they would be interested in a pilot project. Well, given the list of things that I just said all the consortia are doing, it's not a great time for them to take on another project. However, the Heartland consortium share is interested in participating, and Carly is also interested in being interested. So I don't know how else to. I mean, they're interested. So we don't exactly know what's going to happen with that. We also are looking at doing some work. This isn't just about the overlay, but it's related around the whole linked data, bib frame, Zafira, Blue Cloud analytics. And how that might, maybe a cooperative purchase through Rails of some of those things and then how that could tie into any overlay. Thank you for asking that. Any other questions here in Vernon? And we have a new, and I know Matt Womack is excited about this too. There's going to be a new Prairie Cat director, Carolyn Coulter, who is coming from Pikes Peak Library District, which, by the way, John Spears, you all know John Spears, I think, just was appointed director of the Pikes Peak Library District. So, but anyway, Carolyn is a longtime friend of Matt's and mine, and she's coming to Prairie Cat, which is going to be great. She's a great librarian. Okay, any questions in Bolingbrook or Burr Ridge about anything I said?
Not in Burr Ridge.
I guess being in the dark makes them quiet. Interesting. How about Coal Valley?
Nothing from Coal Valley.
Thank you, Judy. How about East Peoria?
No questions.
Thanks, Karen. How about in Aurora?
Nothing here.
Cherry Valley? Guess Jane left. Any streaming questions or comments? How about ILA in Chicago?
No questions, but a comment, because I know we're running out of time. So can somebody add something here about what they're up to?
Definitely silent.
Go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
This is just a commercial break for a second. This is Meg Klinkau-Hartman. I'm the director of the South Holland Public Library on the south side of, Chicago. I'm going to be leaving my position in July, retiring, yay. And it's a wonderful library. Anybody who knows anyone who wants to be a new library director, we're going to be paying $75,000 to $80,000. And please pass the word. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Dee.
Okay. Thanks, Meg. Congratulations, I guess. Yeah.
Thank you.
How about LaSalle?
We're good here.
Okay, thanks, Christy. How about New Lenox?
No, thank you. We're good.
All righty. How about Quincy? Sterling? Sycamore?
Nothing at Sycamore, thanks.
Okay, or Vernon? Anything in Vernon? Anything else in Vernon? All right, well, I think we're done. Thanks, everybody, for great participation. Thank you, Jim and Denise, for all the information. Please go back and send a letter or a message or a phone call to your legislator and say thank you and keep it coming. And explain how important it is. This is a perfect time to do that. You have something easy to say to them, which is thank you. So I guess we'll close it up. Say happy holidays to everyone. See you in March 24th at 10 a.m. Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
So they